Hey guys, I'm here to show you how to create your selfie stick assembly. Now, the first thing that you'll want to have for the selfie stick assembly is you will want to have created a copy of each of the 9 parts. And the 9 parts were shared with you in a document in Schoology. So you want to make sure that you have a copy of each of those parts. Once you have a copy of the parts, please go ahead and go to, so keep in mind when you guys make a copy, you do not have to have the tab open after you make a copy. So you make the copy, close the tab. Go to the next file, make a copy, close the tab. Otherwise, you'll have way too many browser tabs open and it'll drain your machine. After you have all the files open, go ahead and create a new document. And you're going to call it Selfie Stick Assembly. Excuse me. Now, in the Selfie Stick Assembly, there are two tabs. One is called Part Studio, and the other one is called Assembly 1. We're going to go ahead and go over to Assembly 1. So in Assembly 1, you'll notice that the toolbar looks different. We have Insert, Make Connectors, different styles of make constraints, and each one of these make constraints excuse me, has a different a different ability, and it will take away different degrees of freedom. Now, in Schoology, I gave you guys a link to a help document that goes over the different styles of the make constraints. One of the things I do want you guys to make sure, take a look at those and look at what's called degrees of freedom. So originally, all objects start with 6 degrees of freedom. 3 linear along the X, Y, and Z axes, 3 rotational about the X, Y, and Z axes. As we apply constraints, we are going to be removing degrees of freedom. Now, in order to start our assembly, we need to insert some of the parts. If you were to have stuff in your Part Studio, it would show up in this tab. But since our files are from other documents, we're going to go ahead to this tab, Other Documents, and then we're going to browse to where we shared, where we have our files saved. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to browse to mine. You can see I have a whole bunch. And I'm going to place my stick bottom first. So the very last thing that's listed, that's what we're going to select to place. So I clicked on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and click to place it. Then I'm going to go right here to the back, and it's going to take me back to my previous folder. Next, I'm going to put my next part in, stick top, and I'm going to keep placing my parts. And it doesn't matter exactly where you're going to place them, because this is going to as we constrain the things together, it will start to make a difference. That's when we'll start to see the difference of where things go. So here we have all of our different parts. As you guys can see, I'm putting the different parts here. Remember, you should have a total of 9. Once you have all of them, go ahead and hit check. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, because I don't want this one to move, I'm going to go ahead and right-click on my stick bottom, and I'm going to select Fix. So now this one, as you notice, it's not moving, where I can move any of the other ones at any given point in time. Now, if we're looking at this, I want the stick top to be able to slide in and out of the stick bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and select my slider mate. I'm going to hover over my stick bottom, and I'm going to select the mate connector that's in the middle. Then I'm going to hover over my stick top and select the mate connector that's in the middle. The two will now slide together. Because I don't want the slider to go outside of the bottom, I'm going to set my minimum to 0, and I'm going to set my maximum to 6. So now you'll notice that the pole goes in and out. I could probably put my maximum greater. And that's your choice at your max. And then go ahead and accept that. These two, the shoe bottom and shoe top, or sorry, for phone holder bottom and top, will also have a slider constraint. And you'll want to play around with your limits on this one, guys. Sometimes you might need a negative value. It might be at your min, it might be at your max. The negative just means your the direction. Okay, so that is that is the two slider parts. Now this is going to be fixed onto the end of this pole, and it's going to be a rigid connection. So I'm going to select fastened, and the end of the pole is going to be in the top of the Y adapter here. Now you notice that this is flipped. If that happens, what you can do, this little arrow here, is flip axes. This one will allow it to rotate. So you notice again, this one rotates it. So you want to make sure it's facing out and it's rotated the direction that you want. And then you go ahead and hit the check. Okay, guys, so once we have this set up So remember, this is a rigid connection. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the shoe bottom and screw. So this one, we do want this one to be able to revolve. So this is going to be a revolute. And I'm going to put the outside of the one side here to the inside of the hole. Now you notice that we don't necessarily want it to go all the way around because that's just not realistic. So we're going to have to think of some limits here. We're going to have to look at our angles. So right now I'm at 0 degrees. So we want to think of what the limits are going to be. So as you can see, the negative 90 to 90 did not work. So I'm going to be playing around with the flips. To see what happens with my flips. So between flipping my primary and flipping my secondary, reorienting my secondary, I'm able to get a good connection. So again, with this one, you want to have a limit, play with your angles. You'll also want to flip the primary and flip the secondary more than likely. Once you get a good setting, that's when you can make sure that it works. And apparently also make sure that you have it set up so that it's going the proper way. Okay, so now that I have this on there, I'm going to go ahead and set up. This is going to go into my hole here. So I'm going to make sure that my screw goes into my hole. Now I chose a fastened so that I didn't have any degrees of movement on it. You could also do a cylindrical mate or a Revolute. Those would also work. Okay. So you guys can choose on that one, but you want the opening of the screw to touch the outside of the circle. So again, let me show you again. This opening here, the outside of that is going to go to the opening, the end of the threaded area. Now I need to have this go into here. So that's going to be a rigid. Opening to the end of the shaft. So the one that's touching the base here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And now this shaft opening is going to go into the bottom of my my phone holder. So I have the end of my rod. I'm going to rotate this around a bit so that I can see the base of this hole here. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So now I have my stick assembled and I have my phone holder assembled. Now I have to put this and this together. So I'm going to do a planar mate with that one. And I want to be careful about where I'm selecting. Because again, I want to make sure that they're a good fit. So it might take a couple of times to get the right connections on your plane. That is okay. So again, you guys noticed you can also change the primaries and secondaries. And then once you get everything assembled here, then it's all good. So you're just going to have to play around with the last connection here. And again, you guys can do this in any particular order.